Hi everybody. This is Jerry Wise. This video is entitled The Power of No Self in a System. Michael Kerr, a Murray Bowen Families writer, writes, "No self has a powerful effect on a relationship system." Often we think of no self and codependence as weak, victims, powerless, and impacting the system very little, and impacting others very little. We just comply, we just give in, we just go with the flow. And I remember feeling that way very strongly for many years. And I felt very unempowered. But when you read Melody Beattie's book on Codependent No More, if you read the other part of her title in which she says, "Stop controlling others," she's talking about stopping controlling others with a no self. And that's what we codependents do. The one pole is if we have a self, we develop a self, and then we infuse that into the system. And that changes the system. At least in the short run, may be difficult, but in the long run will be better for us and better on the system in the long run. The other pole of that is another way to look at codependency or no self, in which the no self has a lot of power in the system. And we want to recognize that. Edwin Friedman, in his book Generation to Generation, states, "The most powerful people in the relationship system, in the family, in the workplace, are the most dependent or most immature, those with no self." And I remember as a pastor how difficult it was for me to deal with the problem parishioners, which I couldn't control, didn't know how to manage because I wasn't very self-differentiated. And it was so difficult because the most dependent or the most immature would run the whole organization. And they do, no matter how much the leader is trying to be powerful, act in a leadership way, usually the least mature can wield the most power. Same is true in a workplace and other places. If we recognize that, we can begin to change that system. Passivity and disappearing and choosing no self sends a current of anxiety through the emotional field or system or relationship. That no self sends that anxiety through the system to keep it just as it is and to keep the status quo. We fit in by no self. And what we want to learn to do is to alter our functioning into being a self while not worrying about anybody else's functioning. And that creates an environment in which everyone else in the system needs to fit in with us when we start to have a self. So we want to stop thinking in just a linear cause and effect way. We want to think in a systems way. A no self state reinforces the status quo and keeps the relationship from changing. And so many people go, "Well, how can I do anything different if they don't change?" And I'm going, how is anything going to be different if you don't change? So you're worried about that. I don't know if they're going to change. They may never change. What are you going to do with you? And you're an adult now, and you can make choices to protect yourself, care about yourself, and be a self. Being a self disrupts the enmeshment and fusion in relationship systems. It disrupts the dysfunction. It disrupts the anxiety that goes spinning through the relationship system and through you. Because the anxiety and emotional forces in the relationship are what keep the problems in place. And so we want to disrupt that anxiety and that emotional current that's running through. Once I start to be a self or more self-differentiated, I become a circuit breaker in the whole system. And then others adjust to that. And that's a real powerful thing. Again, no self shifts your anxiety to the relationship system or to others. And that's what I call anxiety shedding, is what everyone does in a dysfunctional family and system. Everybody gets pinged, they have anxiety, and then they function in a certain way to shed the anxiety from themselves and keep the status quo going. This pinging is the glue that keeps everyone in their emotional place, playing their role, fitting in. If we resist the need, the desire to shed that anxiety and stop dumping this anxiety back into the system or back into our relationships, then we change. Believe it or not, they change too, to adjust to it. They change because they have to adjust to our improved functioning. So focus on your functioning, not others. Stop wielding your no self and accept the limitations that you have, the humility that you have, the power of being self. I remember a supervisor confronted me about, hey, Jerry, your codependency is controlling our relationship. What do you mean my codependency is controlling my... I don't have a self. I feel low self-esteem and lack of confidence. And he said, yeah, I understand that. That's a part of codependency. That's a part of no self living. I understand. But do you also know you're wielding a certain power with that? And are you sure you want to do that? Maybe you should become more accepting of yourself, accepting of the relationship, letting the relationship be as it is and not trying to change me, and focus on you, he would say. Well, I never thought of it that way. I just never conceived of it that way, that I was wielding a power with my codependency. I thought I was powerless. And he goes, no, that's a very powerful, no self is a very powerful thing to wield. Now, I'm not shaming or criticizing anyone who's codependent or has no self. I'm just saying no self has a couple of different poles to it. And we don't often hear the other pole. We just hear, oh, well, you need to develop a self. It's good to have a self. You've been wounded. That's why you don't have a self. But we don't think about, I'm still functioning with that. And as an adult, I'm choosing that in the relationship. So you're not a kid anymore. And basically he was telling me, Jerry, are you ready to grow up and not just wield your no self and not just wield your codependency? No, I don't want to grow up. I want to stay codependent and poor me and be a victim. And no, I don't want to do that. Stop telling me that, Dr. Crow. I don't want to do that. He was a great supervisor. Learn your own immaturity, your own shame, your own guilt, your own self-criticism, and accept these with love and begin to heal. If you underfunction, if you have dysfunctional things about you, the way to change is through acceptance. Acceptance is the way to change, not beating on them and trying to beat them out of you. Acceptance is the way to change those things. Learn to function in a system with more calmness. And I think this is key. I talk about this a lot in my videos. Calmness is everything. There's a video on that you should go and watch because calmness is so important. And that's something you can work on if you can learn calmness. If you can learn to be more calm and nothing else, just learning to be more calm, you will think better. You will recognize things more. You'll see more. And you'll be able to function in relationships differently. And I know it's a big task, but it can be done. And again, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Stop controlling your relationships with no self. Change the system with a self. Change yourself with a self, and the system will follow. Initially, it may be negative in the short run. In the long run, it will be more healing, helpful, and healthy. But no self is more helpful in the short run, but negative in the long run. And so I'm asking folks to flip those. Take the short-term pain for the long-term gain, rather than taking the short-term shedding of the anxiety where you feel better, but having the long-term problem just continue to exist. Become a more responsible me. Learn to declare self. Explore your wants, needs, and beliefs. Learn detachment. Focus on your own functioning in the system versus others' functioning. Let go of the functioning of others. You can't control them anyway. If you can control you, you can affect a system. Let go of others' functioning. Learn about your own subjectivity, which is how you see the world and the wounds that shape your functioning. Learn your own subjectivity. Objectivity is what we see out there with our senses and all that. Subjectivity is the filter that everything we perceive goes through. And so we want to learn our own naivety, our own immaturity, our own subjectivity, our own what we know, what we don't know about ourselves and about how we think. And I'll be having more videos on that. I want to thank everyone for watching. Keep growing up, keep finding yourself, and keep going deeper. Thanks. Have a great day.